what's going on, y'all? T-Bob here.
And Jake as well.
And you're about to watch a little OTB LSU.
We're going to give you all the latest, greatest between LSU football, baseball, women's basketball, softball, and everything in between.
Bottom line, if you want to talk Tigers, keep it locked, subscribe, like it, and we hope you enjoy
The 2025 S&P Plus rankings have come out for the 2025 season. This was actually last week. Bill Conley of ESPN put these out. Look, those are a little confusing. They're solely based on Conley's analytics and metrics. So essentially what he does is predicts strength of schedule based on the projected winning percentage an average top five team could expect against your specific schedule. Also, every SEC team is listed in its top 25 on strength of schedule. No surprise there. Missouri last, which I filled in for Hunt Palmer a couple weeks ago. I don't know who Eli Drinkwitz has paid off to get such an easy schedule. He had by far the easiest schedule in 2024, and he has so once again. Think about what we said all last year about Missouri. Is this team actually good? And here's why: because they were beating the crap out of teams, but they weren't any good. They played 3 ranked opponents last year. Missouri lost all 3 of them, and honestly should have lost to Vanderbilt. If Vanderbilt kicker doesn't miss a 42-yard field goal and send that to force that game into overtime, Missouri wins. Vanderbilt wins it in regulation. So that's interesting to see that their schedule is so bad in the SEC 2 years in a row. For what it's worth, is Oklahoma number 1, Florida 2, Arkansas 3, Vanderbilt 5, Mississippi State 6, South Carolina 7, Kentucky 8, LSU down at 9. So he believes that LSU has the 9th toughest strength of schedule in the entire country. Let's kind of look at their schedule a little bit, kind of get our thoughts on it. Obviously, you open the season with Clemson in South Carolina on August 30th. That's the big one, right? That might actually be your season-defining game, even though it's week 1 of the college football season, because of how talented you are projected to be on paper and how talented Clemson is as well. Look, I think LSU potentially, depending on how certain dominoes fall, where the chips lay and all that, has a chance to be a really good football team this year. But Clemson's going to be a really good football team as well. Cade Klubnik returns as the starting quarterback. Going into last season, everyone wanted to see, hey, can Cade Klubnik protect the football a little bit more? He did that. 36 touchdown passes, only 6 interceptions, close to 70% completion percentage. He was excellent a year ago. Also, he returns all 3 of his leading receivers from last year. Now Clemson's offense loses Phil Maffa, but you couldn't really run the ball last year anyways because your offensive line just wasn't good at run blocking, very similar to LSU's offensive line for most of the season. So while you lose Phil Maffa, he wasn't a huge impact for you last year anyways, and your offense was still effective. So first we're going to do is let's say LSU beats Clemson, okay? Doesn't really matter what the score is. Let's say LSU goes on the road, beats Clemson. So you're sitting there at 1-0, and you come home against Louisiana Tech. That's going to be a win. Week 3 of the season, you host the Florida Gators. It came out yesterday that DJ Lagway is suffering a little bit of an arm issue. He can't throw the ball. He's going to miss the majority, if not all, of spring practice. If that lingers into the season, you're in Baton Rouge. You lost to Florida in the Swamp last year, which is a game I think you should have won anyways. I like your chances there. So then you're sitting at 3-0. Let's give you a win against Florida. You come home again, Southeastern, that's going to be a win. So you're at 4-0 going to Ole Miss on September 27th. Ole Miss was a tight game a year ago, but I'm going to give the advantage to LSU strictly because they lose Jackson Dart. They have to replace him. Now, Austin Simmons is the projected starter out there at Oxford. By all accounts, he's a talented quarterback, but we just haven't seen him be that starting quarterback at Ole Miss. I got to go with who I trust, with who I know has been there, done that. That's Garrett Nussmeier. He's the returning starter. So you're 5-0 right now. I think you beat South Carolina, even though that's going to be a dogfight once again, because you were able to go in their house last year, beat them on the road. They come back to Baton Rouge. You're 6-0. I think you beat Vanderbilt. That puts you at 7-0. Texas A&M is at home. That is another game that in the first half of that game you absolutely dominated. Something flipped late in the second quarter. The second half, A&M comes out, blows the doors off of you. And then that started LSU's 3-game skid last year with A&M, Alabama, and Florida. Can you fix that problem, though? You know Marcel Reed is likely going to be the guy all season long. There is no excuse of Well, they changed quarterbacks in the middle of the game. We really didn't expect to see him. We weren't prepared for it. You got all year to prepare for that guy now. I expect him to do that. I expect him to do a much better job. Let's give him a win there. Now you're 8-0. You go to Alabama. I'll give you a loss. We'll give it a loss to Alabama. Even though they're breaking in a new quarterback, Bryant-Denny's a tough place to play. Even though LSU has fared well there in the regular season. So that puts you at 9-1 or 8-1. I think you're going to beat Arkansas. I don't think they're going to be any good. You're going to beat Western Kentucky. You're 10-1. Then you got to go on the road at Oklahoma. So if you beat Clemson, there's a chance you can almost win out the rest of the year. Drop one of Ole Miss or Alabama. I think those are your two toughest games because they are both on the road. What happens if you lose to Clemson? Let's say you lose that first game. I still think you beat Tech. I still think you beat Florida. You'll take Southeastern. So you're 3-1 at that point. So you lose your first game of the year. All you have to do, though, is run the table, win all the other games you're supposed to win. Now, I get it. That's easier said than done. DJ Lagway is going to be really good, but that's in Baton Rouge. Marcel Reed's probably going to be good. That game is in Baton Rouge. I'm giving you the advantage over both of those teams because you're at home. You play so well in Tiger Stadium. All you got to do, even with a loss to Clemson, is split one of Ole Miss and Alabama. That puts you at 10-2 in the regular season. A 10-2 SEC team is, in all likelihood, going to get into the college football playoff. You get into the playoff, anything can happen. So, while, look, there's certainly tough games. South Carolina at home by no means is going to be a cakewalk. A&M at home is going to be a tough game. Florida at home is going to be a tough game, especially if DJ Lagway is fully healthy by then. You got Ole Miss on the road. You got Alabama on the road. You got Clemson on the road. I just listed 6 games you could potentially lose. But if you take care of business at home and win if you take care of business at home and win one of the 3 on the road, Clemson, Ole Miss, Alabama, you're sitting at 10-2. Especially if you beat Alabama or Ole Miss. Then you only have one SEC loss. You're still in a really good spot. You look at the schedule, and yes, it certainly looks tough, but most of your tough games are at home. And even with Ole Miss on the road, Alabama on the road, they're both breaking in new quarterbacks. I'm assuming it's going to be Austin Simmons at Ole Miss. By all accounts, he's talented. We haven't really seen it yet. At Alabama, is it going to be Ty Simpson? Is it going to be Keelan Russell? We don't really know. These are all things that are still very much up in the air. And again, A&M at home, Arkansas at home, Oklahoma on the road, but they're kind of a mess right now. I mean, they bring in John Mateer, which he did a lot of good things at Washington State. Playing in a 2-team conference in the Pac-12 is a lot different than playing in the SEC. And Brent Venables is on thin ice there anyways. I think they're going to have a good defense. But is it going to be as good of a defense as it was last year? You lose Danny Stutzman and Billy Bowman. Those were your 2 best defensive players from a year ago. You lose Jackson Arnold. How many weapons are you going to have on the outside? LSU stole your leading receiver in Bauer Sharp last year and your most talented receiver that didn't get to play in Nick Anderson. They are both going to be in Tiger uniforms this year. How many weapons are honestly going to be around John Mateer? He put up big numbers in a wide open offense. And here's the problem. Oklahoma is trying to run that spread offense, but in the SEC, I get it. It's a pass-happy league now. You still have to be able to run the football. They were not able to do that all season last year, and that's really what kept them out of ball games and what got them behind early on. I don't see how they've made a big improvement in that area this year. Like LSU's chances there. So yes, while Bill Connelly has them as number 9 toughest schedule in his S&P Plus rankings, I like LSU's schedule. I actually think it's pretty manageable. Clemson could define your season week 1, but it doesn't have to. Even if you lose to Clemson, you take care of business everywhere else, win all your home games, beat Oklahoma on the road last game of the season. Then your season really comes down to 2 games, at Ole Miss, at Alabama. Can you split them? If you lose to Clemson, you have to split those games. If you beat Clemson, you can probably lose both of them. So while on paper, yes, this is a really tough schedule, things fall nicely for you. Some of your tougher games with returning quarterbacks like Florida, like South Carolina, like Texas A&M are all at home. Ole Miss and Alabama on the road, but they're both breaking in new quarterbacks. How are they going to look? They also both lose a lot on the offensive side of the ball. And Alabama didn't have a ton of weapons on offense last year to begin with. It'll be interesting to watch. I think LSU does have a tough schedule, but honestly, as far as the tough schedule in the SEC goes, this one might be more manageable than a lot of people may think.
Wow, Jake, what incredible takes.
I mean, those guys, they're just the best.
I think so. And if you think so, again, hit the like button, subscribe, ring the bell so you get notifications when we post every single day here on OTB LSU.